The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with the usual mix of translated voices, each species contributing to what they called civilization. Ambassador Zix Thala of the Viridian Empire adjusted her crystalline form, light refracting through her body as she addressed the assembly. The topic of discussion was routine, the admission of yet another primitive species into their vast galactic community. The species calls themselves humans, she announced, her voice carrying the mechanical precision of her translator. They inhabit a small blue world in what they call the Milky Way galaxy, though we know it as Sector 7 Alpha. Initial scans show they are carbon-based, bipedal, and remarkably unremarkable. A ripple of what could be called laughter moved through the chamber. The Kethmori delegation, massive insectoid beings with razor-sharp mandibles, clicked their approval. To them, most flesh-based species were amusing curiosities. The ethereal Psi-Lords, beings of pure energy contained within floating spheres, pulsed with condescending amusement. Even the mechanical Nexus Collective, whose representative was a walking collection of chrome and circuitry, emitted what passed for mechanical chuckling. "What technological level?" asked General Harthak of the Dominion, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. The Dominion prided itself on military precision, and they measured all species by their capacity for war. Zix Thala consulted her data crystal. "Primitive chemical rockets. They have barely managed to reach their own moon. Nuclear weapons, yes, but crude ones. They fight among themselves constantly over resources, territory, and belief systems. Typical pre-space civilization behavior." "Pathetic," rumbled Harthak. "My people conquered 17 star systems before we developed faster-than-light travel." "These humans sound weak," the assembly murmured agreement. Throughout the vast chamber, representatives of hundreds of species nodded, clicked, buzzed, or pulsed their approval. It was always the same story. A new species would be discovered, evaluated, and either welcomed into the galactic community as a minor member or simply ignored until they proved themselves worthy of attention. "However," continued Zix Thala, "they do show some interesting traits. They appear to be unusually adaptable. They have spread across every environment on their planet, from frozen poles to scorching deserts. They also show remarkable persistence in the face of adversity." "All species adapt," scoffed Thysera, the Serpentine Coalition's representative. Her scaled form coiled around her speaking platform. "It means nothing." "Perhaps," agreed Zix Thala, "but there is something else. They have what they call fiction and entertainment industries that seem unusually focused on conflict and survival scenarios. They create elaborate stories about fighting impossible odds, surviving catastrophes, and protecting their own kind." "Mental weakness," diagnosed Dr. Kelnoth of the academic caste. The floating brain in its life support tank pulsed with intellectual superiority. "They clearly compensate for physical inadequacy through fantasy. Their physical capabilities are indeed limited," Zix Thala continued. "They cannot breathe methane like the Kardashi. They lack the natural armor of the Dominion warriors. They have no psychic abilities like the Psi-Lords. They cannot interface directly with technology like the Nexus Collective. In every measurable category, they fall short of established galactic standards." The vote was swift and unanimous. Humanity would be classified as a Category 4 species, primitive, limited potential, suitable only for basic trade and resource extraction under careful supervision. They would be allowed minimal contact with galactic civilization, enough to slowly advance their technology under careful guidance. It would probably take them several thousand years to reach true galactic citizen status. If they ever managed it at all, standard protocols apply, announced the council speaker, an ancient being whose species had long since transcended physical form. Limited technological exchange. Monitoring stations to ensure they don't interfere with established trade routes. No military technology transfers. Standard observation posts. What none of them knew, what their advanced scanners and detailed reports had failed to capture, was the true nature of human potential. Their measurements were accurate but incomplete. Humans were indeed physically unremarkable. They were indeed technologically primitive. They did indeed fight among themselves constantly. But buried in those entertainment stories that Dr. Kelnoth had dismissed as mental weakness was something the galactic powers had never encountered before. Humans didn't just imagine fighting impossible odds. They genuinely believed they could win. They didn't just tell stories about survival. They had an almost supernatural refusal to accept defeat. They didn't just create fiction about protecting their own. They had a deep, burning need to ensure their species continued no matter the cost. More importantly, humans had something that none of the galactic species possessed. They actually enjoyed the challenge of conflict. While other species fought for resources or territory or dominance, humans fought because something deep in their nature thrived on overcoming obstacles. They turned warfare into an art form, strategy into poetry, and survival into a religion. The council members filed out of the chamber, already forgetting about the insignificant blue world and its unremarkable inhabitants. They had more important matters to attend to, managing their vast territories, maintaining trade agreements, and ensuring the stability of their ancient civilization. None of them bothered to look deeper into human history. If they had, they might have discovered that this unremarkable species had survived ice ages, super volcanic eruptions, and asteroid impacts. They might have learned that humans had domesticated some of the most dangerous predators on their planet and turned them into loyal companions. They might have realized that human warfare had evolved from throwing rocks to splitting atoms in just a few thousand years. Most importantly, they might have understood that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their physical capabilities. It was their absolute, unwavering refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. The monitoring stations were established within the year. The observation posts began their careful watch. The trade agreements were drafted for eventual implementation. Everything proceeded according to standard galactic protocol. And on Earth, humanity continued its relentless advance into space, completely unaware that they had just been classified as harmless. Captain Sarah Chen stared at the readouts from the Titan mining station and felt her blood run cold. The numbers made no sense. According to every law of physics she knew, the energy readings from the mysterious object they had discovered shouldn't be possible. But there it was, a perfectly spherical structure buried in Titan's ice, generating more power than Earth's entire electrical grid. "Ma'am, we're getting movement," reported Lieutenant Torres from the sensor station. "Something's coming out of the ice." On the main screen, they watched as the sphere began to rise, melting through millions of tons of ice like it was warm butter. The surface was mirror smooth, reflecting the lights of their research vessel in impossible ways. As it cleared the ice completely, the sphere simply hung there in Titan's weak gravity, waiting. "Any response to our communications?" Sarah asked. "Nothing on any frequency we've tried," replied Communications Officer Park. "But ma'am, I'm reading some kind of scanning beam hitting our ship. Very subtle, but it's definitely analyzing us." Sarah had commanded research vessels for 15 years. She had investigated dozens of anomalies throughout the solar system, but she had never seen anything like this. The sphere was clearly artificial, clearly advanced, and clearly not human. After centuries of searching the stars for signs of other intelligent life, they had finally found something. Or it had found them. "Distance?" she asked. 2 kilometers and holding steady," Torres reported. Then, without warning, the sphere moved. Not the slow, predictable motion of something following orbital mechanics, but an instantaneous translation from one point to another. One moment it was 2 kilometers away. The next it was directly in front of their view screen, close enough to touch. The crew gasped. Several people reached for weapons that wouldn't do any good against something that could ignore the laws of physics. But Sarah held up her hand for calm. Whatever this thing was, if it wanted to hurt them, they would already be dead. A new voice filled the bridge, speaking perfect English with no trace of an accent. "Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. I am Observer Unit 7 Alpha Delta, assigned to monitor your species' development. You have reached an interesting stage in your technological advancement." Sarah found her voice. "You're alien. You're from another world." "Correct. I represent the Galactic Council, a coalition of several hundred advanced species that maintain order and stability throughout this region of space. Your species has been under observation for approximately 50 of your years." The implications hit Sarah like a physical blow. 50 years. They had been watching humanity for 50 years. During the space race, during the moon landing, during every triumph and disaster of the late 20th and early 21st centuries, watching and saying nothing. "Why reveal yourself now?" she asked. "Because your species has reached the threshold for formal contact. You have achieved sustainable space travel, established permanent off-world installations, and demonstrated the capability for systematic resource extraction beyond your home planet. According to Council protocols, you are now ready for limited integration into galactic civilization. The word should have been thrilling. First contact with an advanced alien civilization. Proof that humanity wasn't alone in the universe. Access to technologies beyond their wildest dreams. But something in the observer's tone made Sarah uneasy. What does limited integration mean exactly? Your species will be classified as Category 4 members. You will have access to basic technologies that will accelerate your development by approximately 200 years. In exchange, you will provide certain raw materials and labor services to established council members. Think of it as a mentorship program. Torres looked up from his console. Ma'am, I'm reading massive energy spikes from the outer system. Multiple contacts approaching at incredible speed. On the screen, points of light appeared near Jupiter, Mars, and the asteroid belt. Ships, dozens of them, each one the size of a small city. They had appeared without warning, without any sensor detection, as if they had simply materialized out of empty space. The Council fleet, explained the observer. They will establish the necessary infrastructure for your integration. Monitoring stations, resource extraction facilities, and educational centers where selected humans will learn to serve the galactic community. Serve? Sarah's voice carried a dangerous edge. You mean work for you? All junior species begin this way. It is a proven system that has brought peace and prosperity to the galaxy for over 10,000 years. Your species will benefit greatly from our guidance. Sarah looked around at her crew. These were some of the best and brightest humans had to offer. Scientists, engineers, explorers who had dedicated their lives to pushing the boundaries of human knowledge and capability. And now they were being told that humanity's reward for reaching the stars was to become servants to aliens who had been secretly watching them for decades. What if we refuse? She asked. Refusal is not an option that typically occurs to developing species. The benefits of council membership far outweigh any perceived disadvantages. But what if we refuse anyway? For the first time, the observer's tone changed slightly, a hint of something that might have been surprise or perhaps annoyance. Such a decision would be inadvisable. The Council has significant resources at its disposal to ensure compliance with galactic law. Translation, do what we say, or we'll make you do what we say. Sarah felt something building inside her chest. A familiar feeling she had experienced before when faced with impossible odds. During the hurricane that had nearly destroyed her hometown when she was 12. During the engine failure that had almost killed her crew on her first deep space mission. During every moment in her life when the universe had tried to tell her that she couldn't do something. It was the same feeling that had driven humanity to climb out of caves and build cities. The same feeling that had put humans on the moon with computers less powerful than a modern calculator. The same feeling that had sent them to Mars, to Titan, and beyond despite every rational argument about the dangers and costs. Pure, stubborn human defiance, observer, she said calmly. Please relay a message to your Galactic Council. Of course. What would you like to communicate? Sarah smiled, and it wasn't a friendly expression. Tell them that humanity respectfully declines their generous offer. The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then the observer's voice returned, and for the first time it carried emotion. Confusion. I do not understand. Perhaps there was a translation error. You are refusing council membership? No translation error. We understand perfectly. And our answer is no. What happened next would later be called the First Galactic Incident. The Observer Unit, designed to monitor and guide primitive species through their integration into galactic civilization, attempted to implement what its programming classified as standard compliance protocols. It never got the chance to complete them. Because Sarah Chen and her crew did something that the Galactic Council, in its 10,000 years of civilization, had never encountered before. They fought back. Admiral Marcus Webb stood in the emergency command center deep beneath NORAD, watching displays that showed the impossible. Alien ships were systematically destroying every human installation beyond Earth's atmosphere. The Mars colonies, the lunar bases, the asteroid mining operations, all gone in a matter of hours. Status report, he ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos of the command center. Sir, we've lost contact with everything beyond Earth orbit, reported Colonel Martinez. The alien ships are using some kind of energy weapon that simply erases our installations. No explosions, no debris. They're just gone. What about our defensive satellites? Offline. All of them. Something is jamming every electronic system we have in space. But sir, the aliens are broadcasting on all frequencies. They want to talk. Webb nodded grimly. Put it through. The main screen flickered and a figure appeared that would have been comical under different circumstances. It looked like a walking crystal formation, tall and angular with light pulsing through its translucent body. When it spoke, the voice was mechanical, processed through some kind of universal translator. I am Ambassador Zix Thala of the Viridian Empire, speaking for the Galactic Council. Your species has made a grave error in judgment. The destruction of your off-world installations was a demonstration of Council authority. You will cease all hostile actions and submit to proper integration protocols immediately. Webb stepped forward, making sure he was visible to whatever cameras or sensors the aliens were using. This is Admiral Marcus Webb, representing the United Earth Defense Command. Your demonstration just killed 3,000 human beings, men and women who were doing nothing more threatening than mining asteroids and conducting scientific research. Regrettable but necessary. The crystal being replied without emotion. Your species' initial response to Council contact was unprecedented and unacceptable. No developing species has ever refused integration. Your actions suggest a fundamental misunderstanding of your position in the galactic order. Our position? Webb felt his blood pressure rising. Let me clarify our position. You watched us for 50 years without revealing yourselves. You made decisions about our future without consulting us. You showed up with a fleet of warships and told us we'd be working for you. And when we said no, you committed mass murder. Does that about sum up our position? The alien's crystalline form flickered with what might have been annoyance. You speak as though you have choices in this matter. Your species lacks the technology to pose any threat to Council forces. Your cooperation is not required, only your compliance. You want to see what humans do when backed into a corner? Webb asked. Colonel Martinez, initiate Broken Arrow protocol. Martinez hesitated for just a moment. Sir, are you sure? That's our entire nuclear arsenal. Do it. Around the world, missile silos opened. Nuclear submarines surfaced. Strategic bombers took to the skies. Within 15 minutes, over 2,000 nuclear warheads were climbing toward orbit, their trajectories calculated to converge on the alien fleet. The crystal being's form pulsed more rapidly. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our defensive systems. This action serves no purpose except to demonstrate your species' irrational aggression. Maybe, Webb agreed. But here's what you don't understand about humans. When someone threatens our family, our home, our future, we don't calculate odds. We don't consider consequences. We fight, even when we can't win, especially when we can't win. The nuclear barrage struck the alien ships exactly as predicted. The warheads detonated against energy shields that absorbed the blasts like raindrops hitting a window. Not a single alien vessel was damaged, but something had changed in the crystal being's posture. Your irrational behavior cannot continue, it announced. The Council has decided to implement immediate planetary pacification protocols. Resistance will be overcome. The transmission ended, and the alien fleet began moving toward Earth. What happened next became known as the 72-hour war, though it was less a war than a systematic demonstration of technological superiority. The aliens disabled every military installation on Earth with surgical precision. They knocked out power grids, communication networks, and transportation systems without killing a single additional human being. In less than 3 days, human civilization was effectively paralyzed. But the aliens made one crucial mistake. They assumed that paralyzing human technology would break human resistance. They had never encountered a species that had spent most of its history fighting wars without advanced technology. Reports began filtering in from around the world. In the mountains of Afghanistan, groups of humans were using the same cave systems and guerrilla tactics they had employed for centuries. In the Amazon rainforest, indigenous tribes were sharing knowledge of plants that could disrupt alien sensors. In the cities, resistance cells were forming using nothing more sophisticated than radios and signal flags. But the real surprise came from an unexpected source: human creativity. Dr. Elena Vasquez had been working on theoretical physics at CERN when the aliens arrived. Now she was huddled in an abandoned subway tunnel in Geneva with 30 other scientists, using salvaged electronics and pure stubbornness to analyze recordings of the alien technology. It's not magic, she insisted to her colleague, Dr. James Harrison. They're just using physics we haven't figured out yet. But physics is physics. If they can manipulate it, so can we. Elena, they're 10,000 years ahead of us, James protested. How can we possibly— Because they think like administrators, she interrupted. They've been managing a peaceful galactic civilization for millennia. They've forgotten how to innovate under pressure. But humans, we do our best work when everything's falling apart. Using equipment cobbled together from children's toys, old car parts and salvaged computer components, Elena's team began decoding the alien technology. They had no advanced laboratories, no supercomputers, no research budgets. What they had was desperation, creativity, and the uniquely human ability to make something out of nothing. Meanwhile, in cities around the world, other groups were making their own discoveries. The aliens' energy weapons worked by disrupting molecular bonds, but certain combinations of materials seemed to interfere with the effect. Their sensors could detect most human technology, but they struggled with signals that combined digital and analog components in seemingly random ways. Most importantly, the aliens' greatest advantage, their ability to instantly coordinate across vast distances, was also their greatest weakness. Their communication systems were so sophisticated that they couldn't be easily modified or adapted. When humans began broadcasting jamming signals on the exact frequencies the aliens used, the entire galactic fleet found itself unable to communicate effectively. Within a week of the occupation, Ambassador Zixathala was forced to send another transmission to her superiors. This time, her crystalline form was dim, her light patterns erratic with what humans were learning to recognize as stress. Council Command. This is Observer Unit 7 Alpha. The human pacification is not proceeding according to standard protocols. The indigenous population has proven unusually adaptable to occupation conditions. Request permission to implement enhanced compliance measures. The response came back from the Galactic Council within hours, but it wasn't what Zixathala expected. Negative on enhanced measures. Recent intelligence suggests that our evaluation of human capabilities may have been incomplete. Maintain current positions, but take no further action against civilian populations until we can conduct a more thorough assessment. For the first time in its existence, the Galactic Council was experiencing something they had never encountered before: uncertainty about their ability to control a primitive species. And in the ruins of human civilization, scientists, soldiers, farmers, teachers, and children were learning something about themselves they had never fully understood. They were absolutely, categorically, spectacularly dangerous when threatened. General Harthak of the Dominion paced the bridge of his flagship like a caged predator. For the first time in his 300-year military career, he was facing an enemy that made no sense. The humans should have been broken. Their technology was disabled, their government scattered, their military forces neutralized. By every tactical analysis in the Dominion's extensive databases, the species should have surrendered weeks ago. Instead, they were getting worse. Report, he growled to his intelligence officer. Sir, the situation continues to deteriorate. Human resistance has increased by 40% in the last 7 days. They're using tactics that don't appear in any of our military manuals. Harthak's 4 eyes narrowed. Explain. Well, sir, yesterday a group of humans in what they call Australia used a herd of large, aggressive animals called kangaroos as living projectiles. They somehow trained the creatures to carry explosive devices and leap at our patrols. 3 of our hover tanks were destroyed by weaponized marsupials. Weaponized. What local fauna, sir? The humans seem to be turning their entire planet into a weapon. In the North American region, they've taught their domesticated canines to identify our soldiers by scent, and then lead human fighters to ambush positions. In Asia, they're using something called Kung Fu, which appears to be a form of hand-to-hand combat that treats our armor joints as specific targets. Harthak felt his mandibles clicking with frustration. These are primitive tactics. How are they effective against our superior technology? That's the problem, sir. They're not fighting our technology. They're fighting us. They seem to have realized that inside all our advanced equipment are biological operators, and those operators have the same basic vulnerabilities as any living being. The intelligence officer brought up a holographic display showing incidents from around the planet. Look at this engagement from their African continent. A single human female using only primitive explosives disabled an entire patrol by targeting the psychological comfort zones of our Kardeshi troops. How does one target a psychological comfort zone? She filled the area with what humans call music, but at frequencies that interfere with Kardeshi natural echolocation. The entire unit experienced severe spatial disorientation and had to withdraw. Harthak stared at the report. A human defeated an elite Kardeshi unit with sounds? Yes, sir. And that's not the worst of it. The humans are sharing their discoveries globally. They've created some sort of communication network that operates completely outside their normal technology. They're using everything from trained birds to reflecting sunlight off mirrors to coordinate attacks. Every successful tactic is being copied and improved by humans across the planet within hours. The general felt something he hadn't experienced since his youth: genuine respect for an enemy's capabilities. Show me more. The display shifted to show a tactical analysis of human resistance patterns. Sir, they're not just fighting random battles. They're learning. Every engagement teaches them something new about our capabilities and limitations. They're treating this entire conflict as a massive intelligence-gathering operation. To what end? Unknown, sir. But analysis suggests they're building toward something. The pattern of their attacks indicates they're testing specific systems on our ships and equipment. It's almost like they're reverse engineering our technology through combat. Harthak's communication system chimed with an incoming priority message. The hologram of Ambassador Zixthala materialized, her crystalline form dim with stress. General, we need to discuss the human situation. I've received disturbing reports from the Council. What reports? 3 other Council species have begun questioning the wisdom of this occupation. The Psi Lords are concerned about what they call psychic static coming from human population centers. The Nexus Collective reports that their machine units are becoming unreliable after extended exposure to human settlements, and the academic caste is demanding a complete reevaluation of human intelligence estimates. Harthak felt his combat instincts activate. Are you suggesting we withdraw? I'm suggesting we may have made a serious error in our initial assessment. The humans are not behaving like any Category 4 species in recorded galactic history. They're exhibiting characteristics that are unprecedented. Such as, they appear to become more dangerous when threatened, not less. Standard pacification protocols assume that superior force will lead to submission. But with humans, superior force seems to lead to innovation. They're literally evolving their tactics in real time. The general's tactical display suddenly erupted with alerts. Contact! Multiple human signatures approaching the fleet perimeter. Impossible, Harthak declared. Human technology cannot reach orbital space. Sir, these aren't ships. They appear to be objects. Multiple metallic objects on ballistic trajectories. The display showed dozens of crude rockets climbing toward the alien fleet. They were clearly primitive, barely controlled, and completely outmatched by the aliens' technological superiority. The fleet's defensive systems automatically targeted and destroyed them long before they could pose any threat. But as the debris cleared, Harthak realized something that made his blood run cold. Those weren't attack weapons. They were reconnaissance drones. Sir, look at the trajectories. They were designed to be destroyed, but not before they could scan our defensive systems and transmit the data back to Earth. Zixthala's hologram flickered with agitation. General, I'm receiving reports of similar probing attacks on Council installations throughout the system. The humans are conducting systematic intelligence gathering on all our forces simultaneously. Estimated time frame for data analysis? Unknown. Human analytical capabilities appear to exceed our estimates by several orders of magnitude. Harthak studied the tactical display with growing unease. The humans were doing something that no species in galactic history had ever attempted. They were preparing to fight a technologically superior enemy by learning everything about that enemy's capabilities and then developing specific countermeasures. Ambassador, how long do we have before the humans can implement whatever they're planning, based on their demonstrated rate of technological adaptation? Perhaps days. The general felt his warrior's pride warring with his survival instincts. The Dominion had never retreated from a primitive species, but they had also never faced a species that treated overwhelming odds as a problem to be solved, rather than a reason to surrender. Sir, his sensor officer announced, we're detecting massive energy buildups at multiple locations on the planet's surface. The humans appear to be constructing something. What kind of something? Unknown, sir. but the energy signatures are significant. Harthak looked at Ambassador Zix Thala's flickering hologram and made a decision that would have been unthinkable just months ago. Ambassador, I recommend we consider opening formal negotiations with the human leadership. Negotiations? With a Category 4 species? I don't think they're Category 4, the general admitted. I think we made a mistake. A very serious mistake. On the surface of Earth, in laboratories hidden in caves, abandoned buildings, and subway tunnels, human scientists were putting the finishing touches on something the galaxy had never seen before. Weapons designed specifically to kill gods. Dr. Elena Vasquez emerged from the underground laboratory that had become her world for the past 6 weeks. Above her, the night sky glowed with the lights of the alien fleet, a constant reminder of humanity's precarious situation. But tonight felt different. Tonight they were ready. Final systems check. She called to her team scattered across the hidden facility. Power coupling stable, reported Dr. Harrison from the main generator room. We're drawing energy from 17 different sources across the city. The aliens haven't detected the grid because it's completely analog. Targeting array online, announced Maria Santos, a former aerospace engineer who had become their weapons specialist. We've locked onto the flagship's main power core. The quantum resonance calculations check out. Elena allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. What they had built shouldn't have been possible. Using salvaged materials, centuries-old physics principles, and pure human stubbornness, they had created something that violated everything the galactic community knew about technological development. They had built a weapon that could kill stars. Dr. Vasquez called a voice from the communication station. We're receiving the go signal from sites around the world. London is ready. Tokyo is ready. New York, Moscow, Cairo, Sydney. Everyone's reporting green across the board. Elena nodded. In hidden locations around the globe, teams like hers had spent weeks building similar devices. Each one was unique, crafted from whatever materials were available locally, but all based on the same fundamental principle they had discovered in those first, desperate days after the occupation. The aliens advanced. Technology relied on quantum field manipulation that operated at specific frequencies. Change those frequencies, and their technology didn't just malfunction, it catastrophically failed. Patch me through to Admiral Webb, Elena ordered. The Admiral's weathered face appeared on their improvised screen. Dr. Vasquez, are we ready for Lazarus Protocol? As ready as we'll ever be, sir. But I want to be clear about what we're about to do. These weapons aren't just going to disable their ships. If our calculations are correct, they're going to completely destabilize the quantum fields that hold their technology together. The explosions will be visible from other star systems. Casualties? Massive. We estimate 90% of the fleet will be destroyed instantly. Any survivors will be stranded without functional technology. Webb was quiet for a moment. Doctor, 3 hours ago, we intercepted alien communications indicating they're preparing to implement what they call biological compliance protocols. Our intelligence suggests that means systematic extermination of human resistance, followed by genetic modification of the survivors. Elena felt her jaw clench. They want to turn us into slaves, docile ones. They're planning to alter our brain chemistry to remove what they call aggressive tendencies. They want to lobotomize our entire species. Then we don't have a choice, Elena said. Initiate Lazarus Protocol. Around the world, weapons that shouldn't exist powered up with the energy of entire cities. In London, Professor Oxford's team had built their device into the abandoned London Underground system, using the metal rails as a massive conductor. In Tokyo, Dr. Yamamoto's group had converted an entire abandoned skyscraper into a resonance amplifier. In Cairo, engineers had buried their weapon beneath the Great Pyramid, using the monument's unique geometry to focus their energy beam. Each weapon was different, but they all shared one characteristic. They had been built by a species that had just learned they were scheduled for extinction. Targets acquired, reported Maria Santos. All sites confirm lock on primary fleet elements. Fire, Elena commanded. The night sky exploded with light. Beams of impossible energy lanced upward from a dozen locations around Earth, each one striking the alien fleet with the power of a solar flare. But these weren't conventional weapons. They were reality-altering devices that changed the fundamental nature of matter itself within a targeted area. The alien flagship, a massive construct the size of Manhattan, simply ceased to exist in a flash of light that briefly outshone the moon. The other ships followed in rapid succession, their quantum field generators overloading and tearing apart the very atoms that composed their hulls. In the space of 30 seconds, humanity had eliminated the most advanced military force in the galaxy, but the real shock came from what happened next. "Dr. Vasquez," shouted the communications officer. "We're receiving transmissions from the fleet. Some of them survived. Impossible. Our calculations showed, ma'am, it's not their technology that survived. They ejected in escape pods, primitive chemical rockets. They abandoned their advanced systems and used basic survival technology." Elena stared at the readings. "They learned from us. They adapted." The main screen flickered to life, showing the familiar crystalline form of Ambassador Zixathala. But something was different. Her light patterns were erratic, panicked, and she was speaking without her usual mechanical precision. "Human leaders, this is Ambassador Zixathala. I am broadcasting from an emergency shelter on your moon's surface. We request immediate ceasefire and emergency assistance." Admiral Webb's face appeared in a split-screen display. "Ambassador, you'll forgive me if I'm not immediately sympathetic to your situation. 20 minutes ago you were planning to lobotomize our entire species. Admiral, please. The Galactic Council must be informed of what has occurred here. Your species has achieved something that should be impossible. You have developed combat-effective quantum field manipulation technology in a matter of weeks. This level of technological advancement typically requires centuries of guided development. Maybe that's because you've never had to develop technology while someone was trying to kill you." Elena interjected. "Dr. Vasquez is correct," the ambassador admitted. "We have observed hundreds of species throughout their development, but none under conditions of existential threat. We believed that stress would hinder advancement, not accelerate it." "You thought wrong," Webb replied coldly. "Humans don't slow down when threatened. We innovate faster." The ambassador's crystalline form pulsed rapidly. "Admiral, you must understand the implications of what has occurred. Your species has just demonstrated the ability to destroy Council fleet assets using technology developed in isolation. This changes everything." "How so?" "The Galactic Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years through technological superiority. No member species has ever possessed weapons capable of challenging Council authority. But you have created devices that can destroy our most advanced vessels." Elena studied the readings from the destroyed fleet. "Ambassador, how many other species in the galaxy know about quantum field manipulation?" "Perhaps a dozen. All of them required thousands of years and Council guidance to achieve even basic field manipulation. You accomplished advanced weaponization in 6 weeks. Starting from nothing," Elena added, "using scrap metal and salvaged electronics. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just defended itself against galactic civilization. They had leapfrogged thousands of years of technological development in a matter of weeks. And they had done it while their entire infrastructure was under attack. There's something else," the ambassador continued. "The energy signatures from your weapons were detected by monitoring stations throughout this sector of the galaxy. Other Council member species are demanding explanations. Some are expressing concern about humanity's potential threat level." Admiral Webb leaned forward. "Are you saying we're about to have more visitors?" "Possibly. The Council is convening an emergency session to discuss the human situation. This is unprecedented. Never in galactic history has a Category 4 species successfully resisted Council authority, much less destroyed Council assets." Elena felt a chill despite the warmth of the underground laboratory. "What happens when the Council meets?" "Unknown. But I suspect humanity's classification will be revised significantly." The communication screen flickered as new signals came through from monitoring stations around Earth. Dr. Harrison appeared from the generator room, his face pale. "Elena, we're detecting massive energy signatures at the edge of the solar system. Multiple contacts, much larger than the fleet we just destroyed." "How much larger?" Webb asked. "Each ship is approximately the size of Earth's moon, and there are at least 50 of them approaching." Elena felt her heart sink. They had just used everything they had to destroy one fleet. If this new force was 50 times larger, humanity had no hope of mounting effective resistance. But then she remembered something her grandmother had told her years ago. Elena, humans are at their most dangerous when they have nothing left to lose. Admiral, she said, how long before the new fleet arrives? Approximately 72 hours. Elena looked around at her team, at the scientists and engineers who had just accomplished the impossible under the worst possible conditions. They were exhausted, running on determination and caffeine, but there was something in their eyes that she recognized. They weren't beaten. They were just getting started. Then we have 72 hours to figure out how to kill gods, she announced. Again, Dr. Harrison stared at her. Elena, we just used every power source on the planet to destroy one fleet. How are we supposed to fight 50 moon-sized ships? High Admiral Kethvar of the Dominion War Fleet stared at the tactical displays with something approaching disbelief. His armada, 50 of the most powerful warships in galactic history, was approaching a primitive planet whose inhabitants had somehow managed to destroy an entire council fleet using improvised weapons. Status of the human forces? He rumbled to his intelligence officer. Unknown, sir. Our long-range sensors show massive industrial activity across the planet's surface, but the energy signatures make no sense. They appear to be constructing something, but the technology doesn't match any known configuration. Kethavar's multiple eyes focused on the data streams. How much activity? Sir, they've mobilized their entire planetary population. Every human settlement is contributing resources to whatever they're building. It's like they've turned their entire world into a single massive factory. The High Admiral felt his combat instincts warning him of danger. In 300 years of warfare, he had learned to trust those instincts. Show me the wreckage analysis from the previous fleet. A holographic display materialized, showing the debris field where the Viridian fleet had been destroyed. Sir, what we found is troubling. The humans didn't just destroy our ships, they completely disintegrated them at a quantum level. This requires technology that theoretically shouldn't be possible for a species at their development stage. Theories. The most likely explanation is that they discovered a fundamental flaw in our quantum field generators and exploited it. But sir, that would require them to understand our technology better than we do. Kethavar pondered this. What about their current construction activities? That's where it gets interesting, sir. They appear to be salvaging materials from the destroyed fleet, but they're also mining their asteroid belt at an unprecedented rate. They've launched hundreds of mining operations in the past 60 hours. For what purpose? Unknown. But the energy requirements suggest they're building something massive. A new voice interrupted the briefing. High Admiral, this is the Nexus Collective representative. We must speak immediately. The mechanical figure that materialized was clearly agitated, its usual perfect precision replaced by jerky, erratic movements. High Admiral, we have a problem. A serious problem, explain. The humans are attempting to communicate with us, not through standard diplomatic channels, but through direct technological interface. They're trying to hack our systems. Kethvar's mandibles clicked with amusement. Primitive human technology cannot penetrate Nexus security protocols. That's what we thought. But they're not using human technology. They're using our own technology against us. Somehow they've reverse-engineered quantum communication systems from the wreckage of the destroyed fleet and are using them to probe our defenses. The amusement died instantly. Are they succeeding? Partially. They can't access our core systems, but they're learning about our network architecture with each attempt. It's like they're treating our security as a puzzle to be solved rather than a barrier to be feared. Sir, the intelligence officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the planet. They want to talk. Put it through. The main screen activated, showing a human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. Kethvar recognized her from intelligence files. Admiral Sarah Chen, the first human to make contact with galactic forces. High Admiral Kethvar, she said, pronouncing his name with surprising accuracy. I am Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Command. We need to discuss terms. Terms? Kethvar was genuinely surprised. You are aware that you face 50 capital ships, each capable of sterilizing your entire planet? I'm aware of your capabilities, Chen replied calmly. Are you aware of ours? Before Kethvar could respond, his tactical display erupted with alerts. Sir, multiple launches from the planet's surface. Massive energy signatures. How many? Thousands, sir. They're launching everything. On the main screen, Admiral Chen smiled. "Hi, Admiral. Allow me to introduce you to humanity's first interstellar fleet." The space around Earth erupted with ships. Not the sleek, advanced vessels of galactic civilization, but crude, angular constructs that looked like they had been assembled from scrap metal in desperation. They climbed toward the Dominion fleet in vast swarms, their engines burning with the bright fury of nuclear fire. "Analysis," Cathvar demanded. "Sir, they appear to be using a hybrid of human and salvaged galactic technology. The hulls are primitive metal construction, but they're equipped with quantum field generators taken from the destroyed fleet. The weapons. Sir, the weapons are reading as quantum disruptors." "Impossible. Quantum disruptor technology requires decades of specialized development. Nevertheless, sir, each of those ships is armed with weapons capable of destroying our vessels." Cathvar studied the approaching swarm with growing unease. "How many ships?" "Current count is over 3,000 and climbing. Sir, they've been building these for less than 72 hours. How is this possible?" Admiral Chen's voice cut through the bridge chatter. "Hi, Admiral, humanity has a saying. Necessity is the mother of invention. When you threaten our existence, we don't just fight back. We evolve." "Your ships are primitive constructs," Cathvar replied. "They cannot match the firepower of Dominion warships." "You're right," Chen agreed. "They can't. But High Admiral, you seem to be operating under a fundamental misunderstanding about human warfare. We don't fight fair." The human fleet suddenly changed formation, spreading out in a pattern that made no tactical sense according to standard galactic doctrine. Instead of forming battle lines or attack formations, they dispersed in seemingly random directions. "Sir, they're not approaching for direct engagement," the tactical officer reported. "They're surrounding us?" "Impossible. No fleet can surround 50 capital ships in open space." But as Cathvar watched, the human ships continued to spread out, each group moving to a different position relative to the Dominion fleet. Within minutes, his armada was surrounded by a three-dimensional sphere of human vessels, each one positioned at maximum range for their quantum disruptor weapons. "High Admiral," Admiral Chen continued, "you've made the same mistake every galactic power has made about humanity. You assume we think like you do. You fight with honor, strategy, and adherence to established military doctrine. We fight to win. What are you proposing?" "Mutual annihilation," Chen replied matter-of-factly. "Every human ship is equipped with quantum disruptors, and every pilot has volunteered for a suicide mission. If you fire on us, we all fire back simultaneously. Your ships might survive the first few hits, but not 3,000 quantum disruptor strikes all at once." Cathvar felt his tactical mind racing through the calculations. She was right. Even with their superior technology, no ship could survive that level of quantum disruption. The entire Dominion fleet would be destroyed, but so would every human vessel. "You would sacrifice your entire fleet for a stalemate?" "High Admiral, we would sacrifice our entire species to prevent galactic slavery. A fleet is nothing." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. The humans weren't just willing to die to defend their independence, they were willing to commit species suicide to deny the galaxy its victory. "However," Chen continued, "we'd prefer not to. So here's our counter-proposal. Your fleet withdraws to a safe distance and we'll discuss new terms for human-galactic relations, terms that recognize humanity as an independent species with full sovereign rights. The Council will never agree to—" "High Admiral," Chen interrupted, "the Council is about to have bigger problems than humanity. Because while we were building this fleet, we were also sending quantum-enabled probes to every Council installation within 50 light-years. We now know the locations and defensive capabilities of 17 Council worlds, 43 monitoring stations, and 6 major fleet bases." Cathvar felt his blood chill. "You're threatening the entire galactic order." "We're offering the galactic order a choice," Chen corrected. "Adapt to the reality of human independence, or learn what humans are capable of when we stop playing defense and start playing offense." The High Admiral looked at his tactical displays, at the 3,000 human ships positioned around his fleet like a closing fist, and made a decision that would echo throughout galactic history. "Fleet Command, this is High Admiral Cathvar. All ships stand down and maintain current positions. Open a channel to Council Command. Sir, I need to inform the Council that humanity is no longer a Category 4 species. As of today, they're a Category 1 galactic power. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galactic order was about to change. And it was changing because a species that was supposed to be primitive and harmless had turned out to be the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever encountered. The Galactic Council chamber had never seen anything like it. For 10,000 years, the vast hall had been a place of ordered debate, careful diplomacy, and predictable outcomes. Representatives of hundreds of species had gathered here to manage their ancient civilization with the precision of a clockwork mechanism. Today, chaos reigned. "Order! Order!" demanded the council speaker, its transcendent form flickering with stress. "We will address the human situation with proper deliberation." But proper deliberation was impossible when half the council was demanding immediate military action, while the other half was calling for complete withdrawal from human space. The Viridian Empire wanted revenge for their destroyed fleet. The Dominion was advocating for strategic patience. The Psi-Lords were reporting unprecedented psychic disturbances emanating from human space. And the academic caste was frantically revising every assumption they had ever made about primitive species development. Ambassador Zixthala stood at the center of it all, her crystalline form dim with exhaustion. She had spent the last 72 hours trying to explain to the galaxy's most advanced civilizations how a species, armed with scrap metal and nuclear fire, had become the greatest threat to galactic stability in recorded history. The humans have established permanent monitoring stations in 17 council systems, she reported to the assembly. Their quantum-enabled probes are conducting detailed surveillance of our military installations, trade routes, and defensive capabilities. They now possess more intelligence about council operations than most member species. "Impossible," screeched Representative Thyssara of the Serpentine Coalition. "No primitive species could develop interstellar reconnaissance capabilities in such a short time." "Nevertheless, the evidence is undeniable," Zixthala replied. "Human technology has advanced at an exponential rate under combat conditions. They have achieved in months what typically requires centuries of guided development." Dr. Kelnoth of the academic caste pulsed with agitation in his life support tank. "This contradicts every model of species advancement we have developed. How can a species innovate so rapidly while under existential threat?" "Because," interrupted a new voice, "you have never encountered a species that treats existential threats as motivation rather than limitation." The council chamber fell silent as Admiral Sarah Chen materialized via quantum communication link. The human leader stood in what appeared to be a starship command center, surrounded by displays showing the positions of ships throughout local space. "Representatives of the Galactic Council," Chen continued, "I am Admiral Chen of the United Earth Defense Command. I'm addressing you today to discuss the new reality of human-galactic relations." The council speaker's form flickered with what might have been indignation. "Admiral, the council has not authorized direct communication from—" "With respect," Chen interrupted. "The council forfeited its authority over humanity when it decided to invade our system and attempt to enslave our species. We're not here to ask permission. We're here to inform you of how things are going to work going forward." General Harthak of the Dominion leaned forward, his massive form radiating barely contained aggression. "You dare threaten the council itself?" "General, I'm not threatening anyone. I'm stating facts. Humanity has established defensive positions in 43 systems. We have constructed quantum disruptor weapons capable of destroying any ship in the galactic fleet, and we have developed the technological capability to reach any council world within 6 months." "Lies," snarled Harthak. "Your species lacks the industrial capacity for such expansion." Chen smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. "General, you're still thinking like a galactic power. You build slowly, carefully, with proper infrastructure and established supply lines. Humans build like humans. We improvise, we adapt. We use whatever materials are available, and we build fast." The display behind Chen shifted to show images from across human space, massive construction projects on dozens of worlds, asteroid mining operations that dwarfed anything in galactic civilization, and shipyards that were turning out vessels at an impossible rate. "How?" whispered Dr. Kelnoth. "How are you manufacturing so quickly?" "Because we're not manufacturing like you do," Chen explained. "Galactic technology is designed for perfection, efficiency, and longevity. Human technology is designed to work right now, with whatever we have available. A human engineer can build a functional starship out of asteroid debris and salvaged quantum cores. It might not last 100 years, but it doesn't need to. It just needs to work long enough to get the job done." Ambassador Zixthala pulsed with realization. You're not trying to build a permanent galactic civilization. You're building a war machine. No, Chen corrected. We're building a survival machine. There's a difference. Galactic civilization is built around the assumption of peace and stability. Human civilization is built around the assumption that tomorrow might bring an existential crisis that requires immediate adaptation. What do you want? Demanded the council speaker. Simple. Recognition of humanity as a sovereign species with full independence. Complete withdrawal of all council forces from human space, and establishment of formal diplomatic relations based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical submission. The chamber erupted in protests. Representatives from dozens of species began speaking at once, their translated voices creating a cacophony of outrage and disbelief. Impossible. Unprecedented. Category 4 species cannot silence. Chen's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. Representatives, you seem to be operating under the delusion that you have a choice in this matter. You don't. The display behind her changed again, this time showing tactical positions throughout the galaxy. Human ships and monitoring stations appeared as points of light scattered across the galactic map. There were thousands of them. 72 hours ago, humanity was a primitive species confined to a single star system. Today, we have assets in over 100 systems and the technological capability to strike any target in this region of the galaxy. We didn't ask for this conflict, but once it started, we fought to win. This is madness, whispered Representative Thisara. The balance of galactic power cannot be altered so dramatically in such a short time. The balance of galactic power was altered the moment you decided to threaten human extinction, Chen replied. You woke up something that had been sleeping peacefully on a small blue world. Something that your advanced scans and careful evaluations completely missed. And what is that? Asked Dr. Kelnoth. The human capacity for unlimited escalation in the face of existential threat. When you threaten our families, our homes, our future, we don't calculate odds or consider consequences. We innovate, we adapt, we escalate, and we don't stop until the threat is eliminated or we're all dead. General Harthak studied the tactical display with the eye of a professional warrior. Admiral, assuming your claims are accurate, you now possess the capability to challenge council authority throughout this sector. What prevents us from simply mobilizing the full galactic fleet and overwhelming your forces through sheer numbers? Chen's smile returned colder than before. General, are you familiar with the human concept of mutually assured destruction? Enlighten me. Every human installation is equipped with quantum cascade devices. If you destroy us, we take half the galaxy with us. Every council world, every trade route, every installation within 50 light-years becomes a debris field. We might lose, but galactic civilization loses everything. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Galactic Council was faced with a species that was not only capable of challenging their authority, but willing to destroy everything rather than submit. However, Chen continued, we'd prefer not to end galactic civilization. We'd like to join it. As equals. Ambassador Zixthala was the first to speak. What are you proposing? A new model for galactic relations. Instead of a hierarchical system where advanced species control primitive ones, we establish a confederation of equals. Each species maintains its sovereignty, but we cooperate on mutual challenges, trade exploration, scientific advancement, but no more forced integration, no more category classifications, no more species slavery disguised as mentorship. And if we refuse? Asked the council speaker. Then you discover what happens when you try to cage a species that evolved from persistence hunters. We'll keep escalating until either you accept our independence or there's nothing left of either of our civilizations. The vote was closer than it should have been. After hours of debate, argument, and careful consideration of humanity's demonstrated capabilities, the Galactic Council voted to recognize human sovereignty by a margin of just 12 votes. But it was enough. For the first time in galactic history, a primitive species had forced the advanced civilizations to change their fundamental assumptions about how the universe worked. And in the command center of the human flagship, Admiral Sarah Chen looked out at the stars and smiled. Humanity had gone from a classified threat to a galactic power in less than 6 months. They had also discovered something about themselves that they had never fully understood. When threatened with extinction, humans didn't just survive, and neither would humanity.